Well, Caitriona, thank you so much for being here with me on the Entrepreneurial Success Podcast. We've got some great stuff to cover here today, which I know the audience is going to love, and it's all to do with content. Woohoo! Our favorite topic of all time. Before we dive in and get into all the good stuff and you sharing all those golden nuggets with us, why don't I hand over to you so you can introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what you do?
Thank you very much, Henrietta. So I am Caitriona McBride. I say that I help you find the right words. Um, I've been a copywriter and content writer for over a decade now, almost 12 years I've been working for myself. That's been a very enjoyable journey. I have to say that there's not a day goes by that I'm not grateful that I get to work with words. I truly feel like I found my calling. And I think a lot of people would agree that how I came to it is not the way I think a lot of people imagine, maybe, or people in my industry would think. Um, a lot of people who are copywriters, they have an agency background. If anyone's ever seen Mad Men, that's their sort of idea. But when I was going to university, it wasn't really something that we thought about. That would be very much related to advertising. But I went quite a creative route. Um, I did, theatre and music. We did have some marketing in our course. And I loved it. I absolutely loved that. And it was something that I gravitated to and repeatedly came back to. I mean, I worked in different sort of sales and marketing roles. And I moved to Dubai when I was 24, and I was in a sort of a series of roles there, and I dabbled in PR for a bit, and I was in business development, I was in sales and marketing, and I do think that those marketing elements kept sort of calling out to me. Um, in my last, I suppose, proper role, you would say, for a different company, while sort of furthering my skills as management in that company, I did some copywriting sort of short courses, one day or weekend. I was doing marketing courses very much with that business in mind, which was a photography business. Um, but I knew that I wanted to work for myself. And I was also in a networking group where we would mentor somebody else, and we would be mentored by another member of that group. And when I came to being mentored by this international coach, um, I said it was brilliant. It was like therapy for your career, because he didn't tell me anything, but he asked the right questions that made me say, oh my goodness, I should be writing copy. This is what I should be doing. So then I made a plan. And over the course of a year, I sort of managed myself out of the company that I was in into starting my own business. And that was April 2013. So yeah,
Wow.
11
Oh
and a
my
half.
gosh. And I love that. And I think the important thing here to notice is as well is that, when we start a business, and those are for the audience, for you listening, when we're in business, we always think that, gosh, I've done so many different things, or I come from a corporate background, or whatever that might be. But those are not things lost, because the skills that you've learned there, you carry them along, and you will actually find that some of those skills you are actually sometimes using more in your own business now than you actually used in the corporate industry, and vice versa. But the thing here is you never lose those skill sets. And this is what I love about your story. When I hear you say about it, it's like there's always marketing, there's always been this PR, all of these things, because now you have a better understanding about certain industries, you've learned skills, and that's what makes you a good copywriter.
Absolutely. I do think, and I've mentioned to you that, I've lived in 5 countries. I've worked with
Yeah.
clients all over the world. And each time I learn something, and each time I add to my perspective, and it does then when I move to a new client and I listen to what they're asking for, and then sort of bring my own experience to that, you know what I mean? To tailor the message in the right way for their audiences. So
Yeah.
yeah, you're absolutely right. You pick up little things along the way, and you store them all in the filing cabinet that's up there in brain, and pull it out when you need it. It's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I always feel that when we have these conversations and you hear somebody's story, you kind of always kind of also understand why they are specifically an expert because of that story, because of that background. And this is why I love having these conversations with other female entrepreneurs, because yeah, we're all on a journey, which I think is so exciting at the end of the day. And to understand where that journey has come from and where it's brought you to. Yeah, it's always fun. It's always fun. And then we go, what's next? What's around the corner?
Absolutely, yeah.
But let's talk about all the good stuff. Because like I said, with the audience here, everybody's going to, yeah, the ears are going to prick up because we're going to talk about copywriting here. And I think this is one of the things that in a nice way, I think this is like Marmite. Either you love it or you hate it. But let's start off first and talk about the obvious things, because whether you're in business now, whether you're are just starting out with business, I think the one thing that a lot of us struggle with is in particular when we start having to think about the copy for a homepage, for the website or a landing page. What is it from your experience that even if it's just one or two tips that we just need to think about, and what is the importance of thinking about the copy for a homepage or a landing page?
Probably the first thing I would say, and I repeat this often to business owners, is the copy probably needs to be shorter than it is. Straight up, people, because a lot of people they talk about the fact that they're good writers, and I'm like, that's great for if you're writing a book or you're writing an essay, but maybe not as a persuasive sales technique.
Yeah.
And this is, so I look at it and I'm like, there's either too many words or, we shouldn't see commas all over the place, for instance, on a homepage. People are only going to read about 20% of that. So let's give them what they're looking for, and give it to them quickly. And then they come away and they feel more satisfied by that. So that's one thing. And I was like, in general, I would say that I see sentences that are too long. I always say unwieldy text, or there's text everywhere. We really don't need text everywhere. And I joke because I talk a lot about white space. And I was like, imagine a copywriter telling you not to write more, but I was like, those white spaces are important. The graphics are important. The photos are important. It all comes together in, it's like when you have all of the spices in a recipe, but they create something beautiful when it's all cooked,
Yes, exactly. And I think a lot of people listening to this now, some of them are going, oh my gosh, but I've got so much to say. How am I going to put it in a few sentences? And other people are going, oh, phew, I don't have to write that much. So that's going to make it easy. But I think there's the kind of sweet balance between the two about what is it exactly that you're going to put on that homepage, on that landing page that is going to ring true. And basically, I won't use the word persuade, but make that reader kind of curious and feel like they're forming a relationship with you.
Well, I was doing a presentation yesterday, and it was really funny watching the people, I say in the room, in the Zoom room, and how they all actually responded to this when I said it. That I said the end game is actually we want them to contact you or buy the product. You know what I mean? I was like, that's what we want. That's the achievement. And people forget that because they're like, no, but I need to give them all the information. No, you actually don't. You need to give them enough that they either make that decision right there, which is fantastic, or that they call you so that you can close them, or whoever it is in your business can close them. There is a journey, there is a sales journey. And I think that's it. I've been working quite recently on a website, and the owner of the business is an absolute powerhouse, one of the most impressive women that I've ever met. And her achievements are, but yeah, she wants to put absolutely everything on this website. And I've really had to talk her around to explain why we don't, you know what I mean? It's a tricky thing, as you said. It is finding the right balance, because obviously we do want to give enough information. And that's why I will spend, sometimes things will come to me quite quickly, because bearing in mind, I'm flexing this muscle every day, all day, or at least a good part of the day. So my brain, the cogs will be working to come up with those words more quickly.
Yeah.
But sometimes I agonize over a word because I'm like, is this the right word for that audience?
Mm.
And if you're, for instance, running a business or working within a business and you have a particular role that isn't a copywriter or a marketeer, you're not thinking in the same way,
Yeah.
you know, which is why, I would never send my accounts off to the taxman without a professional accountant having seen them, And I think that we have to remember that yeah, though each word is really important, even and or the where it is placed and why it's there, and you know what I mean. Each word is important on a
Yeah.
web page because we're always trying to sort of grab their attention and make them see that we're the best either at what we do or what we're selling.
Yeah, exactly. And that comes back down to why we need to use other experts in business. We don't know it all. We need to use people like yourselves. Like you say, the cogs are always going. So and you can do it faster. Instead of us just sitting there for weeks on end looking at this homepage going, I have no idea what I'm putting down, but I'm doing it anyway. But I think this also leads beautifully into the next thing, which is, when we come to that content that we create, regardless if it's on a website or anywhere else, it's about bringing that personality into it. And I think this is the one thing that you said last time when you mentioned it, is like, yes, and this includes solicitors, lawyers, accountants, because normally they think like, oh, this information is boring. So from your perspective, what is it that we need to think about in order to bring some of that personality in to our copy?
Well, I think nailing down your tone of voice before
Mm.
you do anything, right? So I always say when I'm working with let's say a small to medium business, I say, well, what words are used in the office, or what's like, is there a catchphrase? Is there something people always say? Um, like inject that into your text. We always talk about conversational, and if people see something a little bit different, that sticks in their mind.
Yeah.
Now, if it jars with your overall message, then you've got to look at that too. And that's why there's a lovely collaboration, let's say, between me and clients. But work hard on the tone of voice, and then everything else becomes easier. So then your Instagram text, and, have a bank of words that these words are us, whether that's, let's say quirky or flirty, or you know what I mean? Or something like youthful. There's different things right now, and like you said, copyright, or content even. Sometimes we're so overwhelmed by it all, but we really do have to like work hard to stand out. But it goes back to this authentic. So people are really going off the word authentic because it's been overused.
Yes.
But if somebody like walks into your office or your shop or your premises or whatever, and they have a certain feeling, and if that comes true in all of your communications, it feels authentic. So it's not
Yes.
about telling people that you're authentic. It's about, again, the journey that they feel the same way. Um, and so, for instance, that would be like taken care of, or I work a lot with hotels. So, we want to sort of cocoon them in a certain feeling. That
Mm.
needs to run all the way through. Um, so I think that if you nail down your tone of voice, and the tone of voice should come from the way you feel as a business,
Yeah.
you know,
Yeah.
um, and that's why, you know, sitting down and thinking about that is actually quite important,
Yeah.
before you put all those words down on paper. But then when you have those words, and I see this, it can be a really, really rewarding experience for businesses, or people in the business, because I I get such joy about, I come to them with words that I think, okay, yeah, I felt a bit of this, I felt a bit of that, and they will gravitate very
Yes.
naturally to, oh, that's us. Oh, I love that word. You know what I mean? they may not have really thought about that word before, but they know that it's them. So then when they start using it, and customers again are like, oh yeah, that's a word that really describes them. It's all, and some of that of course is subconscious, but
Yeah.
that's why I think about those words so often, you know.
Yeah, and you spot them because, you know, for us who are so in our own businesses, who's operating the business every day, we're sometimes in our own heads so much that we can't see the differences. We can't see what it is that we're doing. And somebody like you would just walk in and just like, oh, I've noticed you kind of use this word over and over again. And this is kind of like popping out. And we do need those people coming in with a different perspective to kind of showcase us those things that we don't even pick up on because it's just so automated in most cases. Another thing that you said is quite important is that we need to think about giving the reader something unexpected. And I love this because as soon as you say that, I know the audience is going, oh, what could that be? So even just that sentence alone is very curious. But from your perspective, what does that kind of look like? And can you share a couple of examples of what you've done for some clients in that case?
I always get put on the spot by this. So I can talk about, and this is quite a few years ago, um, I was working with a legal firm and we had to come up with a tagline, of course. Now, a tagline really should be quite simple. You know, and everybody talks about sort of the famous ones like Nike is just do it and McDonald's is I'm loving it and things like that. Um, so I was talking to this legal firm and um they were doing away with the billable hour. Now this we know if you've ever watched any of these legal programs or anything. And I thought that this was a really, really big thing because they wanted to work with smaller businesses and they wanted to sort of partner with smaller businesses. So this is quite interesting as well. They didn't see it anymore as transactional.
Yes.
So again, I want to give the audience something. Um, Sometimes you want to feel a little bit um, familiar, but the unexpected. So what we came up with there was same law, different thinking,
Aha.
right? And this, of course, plays on this. There's so many different things, let's say in popular culture now, you know, same, but different,
Yes.
plays on sort of things like that. So, but straight away, of course, people are going to be like, well, hang on. What's different about them? What's different about this legal firm? You know what I mean? So straight away, we're showing them that there is something. There is something. So then, of course, they want to know why. But of course, we're giving them like in that same law, of course, we want experts. We want, you know, people at that, and these people were at the very top of their profession. And people who'd been like, they had worked on cases for over 10,000 hours, all of the lawyers in this firm, you know. Um, so I'm not sure that's the best example for you, but I'm trying to think of something else now. I have to be careful because sometimes I'm under NDA. So there's
Yeah.
what I
Fair
can
enough.
discuss.
Fair enough.
Um, and but I will say so. Currently, I'm working with um, a boutique property. They have been a retainer client of mine for about 6 or 7 months now, and of course, and I write a lot of luxury hotel copy. Um, there's a lot of words that would have been quite usual in luxury copy, let's say over the last 20 years. Things like stunning and captivating but AI has sort of hijacked a lot of these now.
Ah, yes. Very good point.
So and of course that's because it's learning from all the copy that it has been written before. So for this hotel, when I'm working on their social media, I'm very much trying to um, think outside the box. So we're going a lot more poetic than we used to.
Mm-hmm.
So people enjoy that, but they also know it's different. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? It's not what they have expected what they've been getting for the last sort of 20 years from, or, well, obviously not 20 years, but about, what is it now? I think we've got about 15 years of Instagram now. So what they've been fed for over 15 years, but they're getting something different. And I think one of the amazing things about this we're seeing with this boutique property is that organically, so nothing paid, and the hotel um, hasn't even it's only had its sort of proper launch in the last couple of months, and we had 10,000 organic followers before that
Yeah.
because we were giving them something different. And this isn't a place now that people would necessarily Google all that often or anything like that. So it's an achievement when a place hasn't even opened yet, that people can't talk about it, that we're not having huge amounts of influencer marketing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
That you're getting that organic growth. And I truly do believe that because we're giving them something a little bit different.
Exactly. And I love what you're saying there, because it is about thinking outside the box. But at the same time, it is about thinking about those things, about what is it that you're going to give the audience that is unexpected, unique, different, that is going to make you now a big fish in a small pond, instead of just following the mainstream, doing what everybody else is doing and just becoming saturated with everybody else. And I think this is the key here. So when you create that copy, and I always say that anybody who can read and write can create copy. It's about how you create that copy and what is it that you are showcasing that makes you unique and different. And I'm sure there's so much more to that, because obviously you're the expert, but that's the key. You know, it's about unraveling what are those things that are I almost said unaccepted, unexpected, and what are those things that makes you stand out from the crowd.
Mm. And I think that's something that we have to do more and more. I think, you know, when websites came out, we actually had to give more expected, expected, because everybody was learning.
Yeah.
And I've even seen that in the last 6 years, the conversation around copywriting has changed. More people understand. I used to have to educate more,
Yes.
but now people understand it more. And I don't have to, I mean, this might be sort of where I am in my profession now and my experience, but I, yeah, I don't have to sell myself as much anymore. You know what I mean? Because people understand that they need a
Yeah.
copyright.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
they're not coming to me and saying, why do I need a copywriter? They're coming to me and saying, why are you the best? You know, that's
That's
so.
the key.
And I think that we have to understand that things will keep evolving. So at different junctures, there's things that we're going to have to give
Yes.
in a
Yeah.
different way. Yeah.
Exactly. What are some of the rules that we can use? What are some of the rules that we can break when it comes to copy?
Ooh. So I used to do improv, and
Oh, love those.
there's lots of rules around improv. Well, not lots, but there's some. And we always said that, you know, you can break the rules once you know them.
Yes.
So I would say that if you're not a copywriter, don't try and break rules, because so stick to the rules. And you do have, you know, there's certain things that work better when you don't really know what you're doing. Um, I think that's something that I see a lot that is easily corrected is people use adjectives a lot on websites
Mm,
when they should actually be using more verbs.
yeah.
And it's quite interesting because we, as consumers, we respond to the verbs, but as business owners, we think it feels a bit icky or salesy, but that's
Yeah.
what copy is. It is sales, it is persuasive copy, you know? Um, so rather than saying something like, you know, cost effective, say save £15 on,
Mm,
you know, and that's just quite a simple one, but it's an easy way to explain it.
yeah.
Um, I think particularly now we do need to explore the verbs that we can use, because there's ones that are becoming overused, like boost, for instance, is becoming quite overused, but we can have like extend or amplify. So try and think outside the box a little with them, but those verbs still make us feel something.
Yeah.
And I said already about the shorter sentences, but mix short and long sentences. So give a little bit of
Yeah,
a
a
balance.
balance.
Yeah. So hit them with 3 words and then give them 12, you know? And you can do that in a lovely sort of repetitive manner as well. In general, I would say that most websites probably need more bullet points. We're not seeing enough of like give me the clear and concise sort of benefits of what you're selling me.
Yeah.
And give them to me in bullet points. That's great.
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
it's
It's
right there.
easier to consume. It's easier to consume. And it's so funny that we're having this conversation because earlier on today, I was actually looking at my sales page and I am tweaking a couple of things. And I was like, oh, actually, I never noticed. I could just use a bunch of bullet points here. So now I'm in the process of actually just kind of like finessing a couple of things, taking out a lot of words, making it more readable, more consumer friendly for the reader as well. So it's just so funny how we're having this conversation. And just this morning, I was thinking bullet points.
And now I come along reiterating it.
And you called me onto it. I think one of the other things that a lot of people struggle with is this kind of like, one size fits all, cookie cutter stuff. If this is a cookie cutter thing, if this is working for that person, it should be working for me. If this is working for that person, it should be working for me. But that's not the case. And the same applies for copy. From your experience, why does the cookie cutter principle not work?
Because we're creative, and we respond to creativity as well. All of
Yeah.
us do in any, whether it's music or art or, there's something that we respond to. Some people will really appreciate, the word. I think a lot of people do. It's like, I guess because we all, we learn to read and write quite young. Um, we learn the power of words over us, whether somebody gives us a harsh word or a kind word, we recognize those. So, um, why cookie cutter doesn't work is because, well, first of all, if you have a business, you have a USP,
Yes.
right? So there is something unique about everybody's business, you know. So why would you want the exact same thing as your competitor has? You know, you got to tell your story.
Yeah.
And this is why we've spoken a lot sort of about home pages here, but I just want to sort of touch on the about page is I devote a lot of time to those things as well. And I poke and I prod and people will say, oh, well, I don't really want to. And I'm saying, no, 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 like this is really important because it is the story of the business. And that's another place where people love the personal details. We all know that if a business was passed down from a father to son or a mother to daughter or whatever it is, we respond to that. We respond to those connections.
Yeah.
Um, and so in this way, that's why that the cookie cutter approach doesn't work because it doesn't apply to us as humans.
Mm-hmm.
We're not going to respond to that,
Yeah.
you know? And if you go back to why you have loyalty to a brand, it's because of the story that you bought
Yes.
into.
Absolutely. Actually, it's so interesting that you're saying that because I heard something really good yesterday, and I'm going to use this analogy. It was an analogy of like you going to this amazing dinner party, and you got this car sales guy coming in, and he's just walking in, and it's like, oh, I've got this great cars. You should come and buy cars from me, blah, blah, blah. And you're just going to avoid this guy at all cost at this dinner party. You don't even want to sit next to him at the table because you can just already imagine those conversations. But if this car salesman were to walk in and he would talk about all these classic cars that he enjoys and about all these shows and about his knowledge of cars and about what he appreciates and those kind of things, now it becomes interesting. Now you want to sit next to him at that dinner party table because you want to hear these stories. And I think this is the key here where it comes to that USP, what makes you authentic, what makes you unique. Sharing that through the copy is very much about telling the stories. And it's exactly like you just said, that about page, people always skim over it. But that is one of the most crucial things where you actually start building relationships with people. People are going to want to sit next to you at their dinner party. They're going to want to hear your stories. And you've got to apply the exact same principle in your copy.
And another thing is blogs. A lot of
Yes.
people now, you know, because AI, you know, and they're using it to sort of help them. But I was like, you need the personal. Yes, it can help you with, you know, your English or um, putting, say, keywords in the right places or things like that. But I was like, this story needs to come from you.
Mm-hmm.
We want to hear those stories. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
So, but that's really interesting. I think, yeah, I love that analogy because if people are really invested in what they're doing, it draws us into it. Even if I'm
Yes.
like, so you know, I was like, I don't particularly have that much interest in cars, but I love when people are passionate about something.
Yeah.
And so, you know, I've written websites for all sorts of different businesses, from sort of cloud technology, I mentioned legal firms, to landscape gardeners, you know, and that is each of those times I've learned so much from listening to people who really love what they do.
Yeah.
And that makes me interested. And then I'm like, oh, well, the audience will like this and the audience will like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's when people really truly love what they do. And we've got to translate that onto the page, which isn't always
Exactly.
that easy, you know. Um,
Which is why they need you because they can't do it themselves.
but sometimes they're so good at talking about it. Do you know what I
Yeah.
mean? It's like you
Yeah.
said. So
Yeah. It comes naturally when you have it in a conversation, but trying to put it into words, completely different story, completely
yeah.
different. And I just love that we're having this conversation because I know the audience is listening here, possibly going through a rebrand, possibly just starting out, thinking about that copy, thinking about the content they've got to create, whether it's on a blog, social media. And I think this is so key. What you're sharing here is about, understanding what makes you different, what makes you unique. Don't go and try and do the cookie cutter thing, copy everybody else what they're saying. Bring your personality into it. What is it that make you stand out? What is your story? And share that. You have got an amazing opportunity here for everybody who's listening, watching this video, where you're going to do a 90-minute live web copy polish. I had to get that right. Tell us a little bit about what it is that they can expect if they go through these 90 minutes with you.
I had a lovely review last year that I've started using, that somebody said it was a personalized masterclass on their website.
Oh, perfect.
So usually I work with small business owners, and so they're really good at sort of telling their story. And there's nuggets, there's always nuggets on their website. But like I said, sometimes that's couched within a sentence. They've lost it within a sentence that's far too long, or, you know, their calls to action either aren't there or are weak. So it's basically just me coming in with my copywriter's eye and saying, this works, this doesn't work, maybe we should add something here, maybe
Yeah.
we should move the text there, you know, bits and pieces. But it's like you said, it's not cookie cutter. Those sessions are always different. You know what I mean? I've done over 30 of them now, and people are always just really shocked by how much we cover in the 90 minutes.
Mm.
It's recorded so they can revisit. And like one woman, she told me afterwards that she did 12 hours of tweaking then on the website. But she also saw within a week, she had 7% more conversions when she changed it,
Yeah.
right? And that went up and up and up. After 6 months, she ended up hiring somebody, you know what I mean? Because she had so many more inquiries.
Now, for everybody here listening, so if you want to take advantage and work with Caitriona on this, do that 90-minute kind of like web copy polish. I keep on getting that wrong. There is a very special offer code. It's the code is entrepreneurial success, where you're going to get £20 discount. I didn't want to use the word discount, but I just did. So you're going to get this special offer code. I'll make sure that the details are in the show notes below as well. You can then also get in contact with Caitriona in order to arrange this. But if you also want to get in touch with her, if you've got any questions, her website details are in the chat. All her social media details are in the chat. In the saying in the chat because we're doing this on Zoom. Oh my gosh, you can see it's the end of the day. It is in the show notes, people. Okay, let me just correct that. It's not in the chats. It is in the show notes. We're doing this in the evening. Okay, so my brain is already locking down. But for those of you, please, 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 I highly suggest that you get in touch with Caitriona. You have that conversation because, like I said, you know, if it hasn't come to that point yet where it just sunk in for you to go like, I can't do it myself. I need somebody as an expert to come with an outside perspective and do this for me, or at least tell me what I need to change, then you're going to struggle for some time. And we all understand now a little bit more as to how important copy really is for you as a business owner. And with that said, Caitriona, thank you so much. I really appreciate the time that you took to be here and just to share so much. I mean, I've made a ton of notes anyway. So I'm definitely going to be in touch with you as well. I would love your help. And I think the audience here is going to be in touch as well because they would definitely need your help as well. But thank you so much for the time and being here and sharing everything with us.